Aloha and welcome to this hopefully brief screencast that I want to make to show you the next stage in how to organize a system with Twitter Bootstrap and form controls. And I'm going to start by looking at this new contact.scala.html class that you've been working on during the first module on dynamic web applications. And the thing I think you should notice, I want you to notice about this is that this is pretty grody code. Okay, there's a lot of repetition here. There's a lot of stuff that looks almost all the same. If I was looking at actual, regular Java code that had this same kind of repetitive structure, I would be saying, dude, you should totally refactor this and create, an individual method for your text field, because look at this. The only difference between this one and this one is the value that's passed to this contact form. Everything else is completely identical. So if we could somehow, and also this, the contact label. So if somehow we could refactor things out such that we could pass in this value and this value, then we could have a reusable template that we'd only write all that other code that has the formatting stuff and everything else. We'd write that once, and then we just call it with the parameters. Wouldn't that be cool? Well, it turns out that actually you can do that. It's like trivial to do that. That's what's so awesome. In fact, you've been doing this all along this semester. I think you remember from a previous screencast I was saying, it's going to be like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. You're going to click your heels and realize you had the power all the time. In fact, you've been dealing with templates and writing templates yourself, reusable templates all the time. And it's, for example, this main.scala.html. Okay? This is a reusable template that's called each time you write a page. Okay? And that's exactly what we're going to do. You may have to think about that for a second, but this is what I'm going to show you in this small screencast, is how you can extend that in a super easy way to dramatically reduce the amount of complexity, increase understandability of writing templates and particular form controls with Twitter Bootstrap. Okay, and the way I want to show this to you is by this play example form class, or GitHub or example play system, which is available at this URL. And basically, I wrote this just to show how with simple Scala templates you could create helper functions that enable you to do fairly sophisticated forms and provide all the Twitter Bootstrap goodness. Okay, so this is what the system looks like. It consists of just a single page. It has not only text fields but a password field. It has a checkbox field. It has radio buttons. It has a pull-down single selector list and a pull-down and a multi-selector list. That's basically the six, or what is it? Yeah, the six primary kinds of form controls that you're going to need to deal with. And in fact, these kinds of things can all be generated on the fly. Okay, so you can go to this page and look at it. And I do have at the bottom of the screen, I have a link to a screencast that was actually written for a previous version of this, that was Twitter Bootstrap 2 Play 2.1. So it's a little less. There's some parts that aren't particularly appropriate. There's other things that I talk about in this example, including testing and so forth, we haven't gotten to yet in our class, so that won't be as interesting to you. I'm just going to focus in this screencast on the stuff you need to know to make progress with the class this semester. Okay, so how does this work? You got this form. If you just press submit, what's going to happen, just like we saw with the digits application, it's got some required fields and it's going to highlight them. And then if we go ahead and do the right thing, select a level, select a GPA, and press submit. Then what happens is at the bottom it will actually print out information using this flash scope that the object was successfully created. There's no backend database on this. Just like with the digits example, we kind of mock a repository, an in-memory repository. But the important thing to note is that we get all of these nicely formatted controls using Twitter Bootstrap 3, and the question is, how do we do that? And so to show you, I'm going to go through a few pieces of this, this particular approach. And the main folder, if we go to the views directory, the main folder that's of most importance to you is this Bootstrap 3 subfolder, which contains a single template for each kind of Bootstrap or each type of HTML form control. And not only does it include the actual HTML form control right here, but it also includes all the Twitter Bootstrap goodness you want around that form control to get it to be laid out correctly, to be highlighted in red when there's errors, and so forth. Okay? And then finally, you're going to see that it takes parameters, okay, that enable you to fill out these various pieces. Okay, so this is an example of some code, text.scala.html. You can take this file and just plop it right into your own application, and you should be able to use it. Maybe you'll decide that you want to kind of edit some of these. You want small 3, or you want medium 3, or small 7, or whatever. However you want to change some of the inner details of this. But this forms kind of a ready-to-use piece of code that that helps you very quickly implement any text field that requires Twitter Bootstrap formatting. Okay, and then similarly, we have another little one for checkboxes. This is how you do checkboxes. This is how you do passwords. It's going to be almost exactly like the text, except we're going to have a password type. Here's how you do radio buttons. Again, there's small changes between them, and there's a certain amount of redundant, code in here. But basically, it's very easy if you understand how Twitter Bootstrap wants these controls to look and how HTML wants a radio button to look. It's very easy to understand how this thing is constructed and how it works. And here's how select works. Select is a little bit more complicated because you can use this same controller to do a single selection, which is that pull-down list, as well as the multi-selection, which is a kind of a box that contains multiple, labels that you can select one or more of. So we account for both of those with this particular template. Okay. So how do we use it? Well, here's what's going to happen. Let's go look at our index. This is that home page. Okay. We're going to be passed from our controller data about a student. We're going to have a map that says which are the hobbies that this particular student, what are the hobbies of interest to the form, as well as which of them are currently a hobby of this particular student. Okay, that's what that map is going to do. Then we're going to have a list of levels, which is the GPA, the freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. Then we're going to have a map of the GPA, and that's also going to indicate which one this student is a part of. And then finally, we're going to have a map which shows what are the possible majors that should be displayed in this form, as well as which ones are the majors that should be selected for this student. Okay, so you might ask yourself, okay, I get it how we're going to select the current hobby for a student. I get it how we're going to select a current GPA for a student, and I get it how we're going to select the current majors, the set of majors for a student. I don't get how we're going to select the levels for a student. And the way that we'll do that is we'll actually use a field in the student form itself to figure out which one of these levels is the one that's selected, just so you know. Okay, so we're going to import this helper package. That's so that we can get the @form template, because that comes from us from the Play folks. And then we're going to have our index. We're going to create a container inside the well. We're going to have our entire form. And then we're going to have the form. And inside the form, we're going to call a template that we've defined called @FieldSet. And we're going to pass into that the student form, the hobbies, levels, GPA, majors. Basically, all of these parameters that have been passed into us from the controller. Okay, following that, we're going to use this flash scope, and you can just look this up in the book Play for Java. They do a good job of explaining it. It enables us to basically provide feedback to the user when they submit a form about whether or not it worked or not, and that data will be displayed for only one request, so that if they do anything else, this field disappears. And that's how you're going to get, that's how we, this is you know, stuff that, what do I want to say? Code that you can use to deal with flash scope. Okay, so we have this. Let's now look at the @FieldSet Scala template and see what that does. Okay, that's right here. And here's our first line, which is our parameter list, and we're just passing the exact stuff that we got from the controller. Now we're going to import Bootstrap 3, which is our set of templates that we've defined. Okay, we're going to put everything in a field set. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to call our text.scala.html controller, and we're going to pass it the student's data. We're going to pass it the label that should appear in the form. We're going to pass the placeholder text, and then a help field. Okay, so that's what the text looks like. And let's just go back to Bootstrap 3. And see how that works. So we're passing in a particular field. Okay, so this is when we do that selection of the student form data. Okay, we're going to get a particular field. Here's our string, that's the label. Here's our string, which is the placeholder, and here's the string that's help. And then you can see in here that we simply, you know, call values of that field ID. We get the value of the label parameter right here. For the placeholder, we get the value of the placeholder parameter. And for the help field, we get the value of the help parameter. Okay, so this is just a very simple template with, you know, kind of textual substitution in the places that are appropriate. Okay, so let's go back to our views. Go back to field set. Okay. And what you can, I think you can see is that in the case of our digits application, we are only using text fields. So we could just have 3 calls like this within our new contact.scala.html file, and we'll be all done. Okay, none of that, all of that repeated code goes away, and it's just replaced with an invocation of a template to do this. Okay, we have another one for password that looks almost exactly like the text field. Checkboxes gets a little more complicated because now we're going to take in this mapping, and so if we look at the checkboxes template, what we see here is we have a for loop where we go through each of the elements in the mapping of checkbox map, and then we use this really nice Scala syntax which says for each of these entries in the checkbox map, we're going to do a for loop through them, and within the for loop we're going to bind the key to checkbox name, and we're going to bind the value, which is a boolean, to is checked. Okay, so as we go through this, we're going to generate a checkbox whose ID is checkbox name and whose value is checkbox name, and then it is checked. Okay, if in fact, you know, the value the value associated with the key in that particular map is true, which means that this user that we're passing actually was already associated with that particular hobby. Okay, so that's basically how the whole thing works. I don't know whether I need to say too much more. You can look through the code yourself. We're going to call radio buttons here. We'll call a select, a single select here, which has, value false. And here we're going to do a multi-select, so this parameter right here is true to indicate that. And then at the very end we have a form group for doing our submit. That we don't create a template for that. That often just is custom code, and so we just include that directly, and then we end off with the closing bracket for the field set here. Okay, so this is the paradigm that I want you to use from now on when you're doing Play application development using Twitter Bootstrap. We're always going to use Play. We're always going to use Twitter Bootstrap 3. So what I think from now on is you'll always want to have this Bootstrap 3 directory inside your views directory. Inside that Bootstrap 3 directory, you should basically start off by copying, whatever kinds of form controls you want to use. Start off by just making a copy of one of these, okay? And then, create a form that functions, that's close to what you need. And then, if you want to make modifications to the look and feel and so forth, you go into your own version of this and you change it to your liking. But the good news is that you can get a pretty nice looking form that enables you to pass in data and get data back out to Play, without too many problems at all. So enjoy this, and I'll talk to you soon.